Hello, welcome, welcome. We are here with the amazing Microsoft team, and we are going to learn about personalized experiences for learners and leaders. Thank you for joining us. Please like and subscribe to our channel. I am going to add all of our presenters here. We have Carlos Fernandez, Darren Clay, as well as Stephanee Stevens.
Hey, everybody.
Good morning. So I'm going to go ahead and jump out and let them present. I'm going to add their slide deck here and take it away, guys.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Melissa. We're really excited to be with you all today. I am really passionate about this topic. All three of us are, and we're all joining from different places to kind of walk through today, and we're going to really run this session as a panel. So before we get much deeper in, we're going to just jump into quick introductions to let you know who we are, and we'll get going from there. So I think we'll just go in order. Yeah, Darren, so you can go ahead and jump in with your intro first.
Sure. Greetings, everybody. My name is Darren Clay. Excited to be joining you today. Just a quick 30-second intro. Recently removed from being a school principal, so definitely excited to be able to extend my passion for education in my current role with Microsoft as a customer success manager. Prior to that, I was at a Microsoft Showcase school where I was able to lead digital transformation efforts and really support innovative, outside the box, design thinking type of teaching and learning practices throughout my building, and also supporting other schools and other districts. So super excited to be here with you today.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that, Darren. I'm really excited that you're here for the panel. I'm Stephanee Stevens. I currently serve as a specialist in U.S. education, supporting districts across the Southeast, and actually Palm Beach is one of the districts I get to support. Prior to that, I led a team at Kennesaw State University that did consulting, coaching, professional learning for K-12 districts across the country. I've been a district administrator, and I've also been a classroom teacher. I taught middle school Spanish for 8 years. So I bring that close to cuff as we enter into the conversation. I'll turn it over to you, Carlos.
Hi, so good morning, Carlos Fernandez. I am Stephanee's other half. So we cover the Southeast. We work a lot with the Windows team, the Office team, anything that we can do to help support education inside of K-12. I've been with Microsoft for about 8, maybe 9 years now. Before that, I started my own little startup, had some fun with that. And even before that, I was the director of instructional technology with Leon County Schools. So before that, I was also a teacher. So I taught for about 10 years. I feel like it was absolutely maybe yesterday sometimes. So love the classroom, very passionate about it, and can't wait to start this off. So
awesome. Thanks so much, guys, for the quick introductions. And we're going to get started to try to get to know folks a little bit better with a lightning round. So we're going to go in order here and get to know you a little bit. We couldn't have personalized learning in the title without getting a little personal. So we'll start just going through these with favorite food. I'm going to defer to last so that I can always have the coolest, best, and most funny answer. So Carlos, you kick it off.
All right, favorite food. This is a tough one. All right, so I'm going to have to go with my South Florida roots. Anything Cuban, anything traditional nice. Cuban, I will go with that.
Nice. All right, Darren, what about you?
Okay, this is by far the hardest question of the day.
Right.
I'm going to go with South Florida roots as well, and Jamaican beef patties. Right in the middle of some cocoa bread. Really nice.
Oh my gosh. I haven't had anything to eat yet today. You guys are killing me. Okay, my favorite food is probably my grandma's meatloaf. As weird as it sounds, it makes me feel great when I eat it. Least healthy thing for you. All right, I'm going to start the next round. Favorite song? Probably I'd have to go with If You're Happy and You Know It, because every kid ever on the planet calms down when you start singing that song. So it's the secret mom trick that I have, if you're happy and you know it.
Awesome. I guess I'll go next. Favorite song, Before I Let Go by Frankie Beverly and Mays. Ultimate party starter. Great thing to play during the cookout, and it's Friday, so great thing to listen to start the weekend.
Yes. All right, Carlos.
Yeah, so totally opposite from you, Stephanee. I'm gonna go with hyping people up. I want if my kids are going crazy, I want them to go even crazier to get them even more tired. So I'm gonna go with Thunderstruck by AC/DC.
Nice.
Anything that gets you going.
Nice. I love it. I like that we're all over the map. All right, Darren, what about you starting with favorite board game?
This one is an interesting one. I would say a game called Risk. It's a strategy game. It takes a very long time, 5 to 7 hours, but it's a really cool game, and they have a Game of Thrones edition as well.
Yeah, I would be out in hour one. I can't even get through a game of Monopoly without giving up. So my favorite game is Mall Madness. For those who were born in the 80s and grew up in the 90s, Mall Madness was like one of the first interactive board games where you got your own debit card, and it's back. And they give you sales in different places. You get all the gratification of retail therapy without actually spending real money. So Mall Madness is great for me. What about you, Carlos?
I'm breaking the rules. Okay, so board games don't exist in my house because we can't keep any of the pieces long enough to play it more than once.
Right.
So I'm gonna go with my kids' generation, which is Xbox and Fortnite. There's nothing like playing Fortnite with my 3 kids. It is super cool, and I think my 12-year-old self would be very proud of me.
Nice. I love it. All right, favorite nerdy book. We just mean books that you don't read for like fun downtime. So no murder mysteries here. Something educational. I would have to go with The End of Average by Todd Rose. I love the example. I love the connection to other real personalization efforts and how we can apply it to education. So I'm a big fan.
Sure, I'll go with Switch by the Heath Brothers. Super cool book. Helps you learn how to influence others, and it helps you tap into ways to lead and influence others.
I'm going to continue to make Stephanee mad and break the rules and say, I just listen to podcasts. Any podcast, anything that I can play that just calms me down. There is no favorite. It's just, there's no time for reading. It's all about audiobooks for me.
Gosh, breaking my heart, but I get it. I have so many Audible credits that are going unused right now, Carlos. I need to send some your way.
Please do.
All right, last question here in the lightning round. What is your favorite M365 application? Bringing it home to Microsoft.
I can go so many directions with this. I'm going to go with Teams because it's the ultimate platform. I know that might be the easy answer, but I will confess my first love was OneNote. That's where I fell in love with Microsoft products. OneNote was my first love.
I love it. I wish I could retweet your answer. I think I'm going to. I'm moderating, so I'm in charge. I'm going to retweet. I love Teams as an experience for everything I do at work and now with my family as well.
All right, so because you guys said those two, I'm going to go a different direction. Microsoft To Do and Microsoft Planner. That is what keeps my life organized from a teacher perspective, from just every possible shopping list, any list that you need to create. It's absolutely gold.
Awesome. All right, we're going to keep going here, and we're going to jump right into our first question. So I'm going to give you guys both the opportunity to answer this question, and then I'll bring it home. Talk about your Microsoft employee experience. And I know we've already kind of alluded to Teams, but both of you and sort of sharing about what it feels like to be an employee of Microsoft and how your efforts are personalized or your experience is personalized.
Yeah, so I'll start off by just saying it's been different every year. We are never, ever staying still. It's never been the same thing year after year. It always constantly changes. And from a personalized perspective, there's a ton of different tools. What I look at is I'm constantly looking for ways to make things easier for me. And within our company, it's just we get given pretty much like everything, and they give you so much freedom to kind of just do your own thing. There's a couple of things that stand out. My workplace analytics, right? So anything that deals with data, emails, letting you know how you're working with others, that is super, super personal because it kind of helps me reflect a little bit more on what I'm doing. And then the other one that I'll call out is accessibility, right? Within Windows or Office. Microsoft does a really, really good job at continuing to just push out all of these kind of resources in there. And what I love about it is it empowers me to use these tools, whether I have that accessibility need or not, to use it how I feel like it fits best. So that's just right now a goal for me.
Yeah, sure. I'll add a little bit to that, and I'll probably mix a recent working experience as I transitioned to Microsoft. Because a few weeks ago, I was a school principal. So I'll start there. So one of the things I loved about my experience with the school district, every time I logged in the morning, Teams would pop up. With Teams, I was able to see all of my internal communications, all the collaboration taking place with my PLC teams. I was able to pull up lesson plans on the spot, pull up student activities, go into different class teams to see what students were working on. I was able to check class insights to see, okay, what are the top 3 performing students in this teacher's class, and what are the top, or what are the bottom 3 students that are not quite performing, not completing tasks, or not reading at a high level. So transition that to my experience here at Microsoft. One of the main things that sticks out to me is this idea of growth mindset, where, as Carlos said, every year is different. So you have to be in this constant state of being innovative, being able to respond to feedback, being able to look at the research and determine what's our next best approach, and how do we best support students, how do we best support organizations and empower them. And one thing that I really appreciate about my experience here at Microsoft is the well-being factor that I think oftentimes this goes overlooked in most scenarios. But with Insights, I'm able to schedule focus time where I can really drill down and concentrate and focus on different tasks. I can send praise to colleagues in impromptu fashion. And I can also have my reflect check-ins when I identify how I'm feeling that day, and then I'm given some pointers on how to make my day more successful. So those things really resonate with me when I think about my experience here at Microsoft.
Darren, if I could add one more thing real quick. Sorry, Stephanee, just real quick. I think a lot of people don't realize this, but we are really empowered to do what we think is best, right? So everything that was just said was spot on, but it's we're empowered to do whatever it is that we think it's best to help school districts, to help teachers, and so on. Like, nobody ever tells us, go do this, go do that, right? It's like we kind of treat it like our own classroom. In our own classroom, when you close the door and we have our own teaching styles, that's exactly how kind of Microsoft runs. Stephanee, sorry.
No, you're perfectly fine. And I think I would agree with that. I think empowerment's a big part of personalization. Certainly, research shows us that in order to have agency, you have to have the ability to function executively and leverage those skills. And I think a job that allows you to do that is really an awesome thing to have. I know, because all of us have had classroom experience, we know that sometimes our days didn't feel much like we had ownership over them. And that's why I'm really excited to see that our employee experience at Microsoft is actually being made available through Teams to everyone as a staff member and a faculty member. So I'm sharing a screen right now just to show a little bit of what Darren and Carlos are talking about. Our experience inside of Teams, where we have chat, and to be clear, we have a chat culture, not an email culture. So if you're in a place where you're having death by email, there is light at the end of the tunnel. We have a ton of availability of other resources, teams we collaborate with. I've certainly don't have any class teams on this image, but if you're a teacher, you might have some class teams that integrate with your LMS. But I love the insights here that are provided to us, because essentially we have the opportunity to reflect on how we're feeling. We can have a virtual commute at the end of our day. If your bell rings at 4:30, you can start this virtual commute, capture some to-dos to add to your planner. You can add some emails to follow up on. I love that we've partnered with Headspace at Microsoft. And so we have these available really small snippet meditations and just breathing and sort of recentering exercises that we can participate in. We also have ways to block off time on our calendar as focus time, right? So think about this time as like the things we should be doing during our planning time that we never get around to, right? Grading, planning, catching up on emails, responding to parents that might be reaching out. So focusing that time for things we actually need to do to complete tasks, and we can book that right here inside of our Insights tab. we also can see how much coaching time we've had with our direct supervisor. So if you have instructional support staff or a principal that you'd want to be able to focus time with for coaching support, you can actually find time to schedule based on both calendars. You can schedule that time and it will actually track against a goal for how many minutes a month you have those conversations. We also, like Darren said, can give praise and give people some kudos for great things that they're doing. Great way to build up your PLC team. Great way to be thinking through how we elevate others with positivity if you're a PBIS school. And then also booked right here some learning time with LinkedIn Learning. So I can go through my personalized pathway of what I want to learn about, which is just a really great way to bring all of this personalization to the forefront. So again, as employees, we have really great experiences available, and those are starting to transition, obviously, to the K-12 atmosphere as well. So this is kind of a bomb question, but how would you describe personalized learning? There's a lot of people saying a lot about it. So curious to know what your thoughts are, guys.
Oh, man. So the way that I look at personalized learning, I look at it through the way that I try to teach, but also the way that I used to learn as a kid or tried to learn. Personalized learning for me is like, it's all about meeting the needs, right? Meeting my personal needs as a student so I can be successful. If my needs are not being met, and when I say needs can be anything, right? It could be understanding the way that I learn, understanding the way that I read, understanding the speed, understanding my accessibility needs, understanding how I best react and perform. And I know that can be very, very difficult with 160 students, or that could even be difficult for one to understand and learn about themselves. But for me, describing personal learning, I mean, it's just meeting the needs so I can get to where I want to go, so I can be successful in the task that I'm trying to accomplish.
Awesome. What about you, Darren?
Yeah, I'll just add to that. When I think about the three most important components of personalized learning, I think about learning that's really customized to needs, as Carlos mentioned, interests and skills, right? And if we can drill down on those three things, I think we're moving in the right direction. Also, one of the things that I really enjoyed from my previous role is personalizing professional development and professional learning, and being in a space where I wanted to honor the fact that teachers learn differently from their peers on their grade level, their peers in their content area, and that they need a personalized experience as well. Glad I was able to move in that direction and accomplish that. And the last thing, I think at the highest level of personalized learning, a couple things that have to be considered is, right now we're confined by grades, right? Why don't we start looking at proficiency, bringing that into the conversation? Because right now I have a 3-year-old son, and I know he has some things that he's very, very strong at, which he can possibly at some point be above grade level. And there's some things that we need to really start drilling down on right now. But what if we looked at his proficiency level as opposed to just a grade? What if we looked at personalized learning that was catered to his interests? He's a really big hands-on learner, to the point where he likes to destruct and make a mess sometimes. But what if we tuned into that and built his skills, and built those fine motor skills to create just an awesome learning experience for me? So I think it's a really broad conversation that would take a lot of, let's say, school level and district level conditions to really kind of frame that out.
Awesome. Great insight, guys. And I probably should now tell you that I actually specialize in personalized learning. It's the area of focus of my dissertation. I also remain part-time faculty at the graduate level at a university in Georgia, where we teach an endorsement program in personalized learning. So not only am I passionate about it, but I've had a lot of experience with it. And I think both of you raised really good points. I think that we also have to kind of call out here that personalization in K-12 can be kind of stigmatized, because sometimes, and maybe you all can comment in the chat if this is you, you think to yourself when you hear the descriptions of personalized learning that, oh, I'm doing that already. We differentiate, or we're doing individualized instruction, or isn't this just an IEP for every student? And I think the really important question to ask ourselves to hold against all of these other models is, who is the agent of action? I love this this visual by Bray and McClaskey, and essentially it says the difference across all three: personalization, differentiation, and individualization. And the very first line of the columns will tell you what we start with, or who we start with. Differentiation, we know that as grouping, as trying to take, what we know students will probably be at as far as leveling, whether they're excelling, they're kind of in the middle, or they're low, and work from there. Individualization starts with the needs of an individual learner, as does personalization. However, when we read down, we actually know that the agent of action is the student themselves in personalization. So the learner is actually selecting appropriate technologies. The learners have a voice and choice, rather than the teachers having to be really at the front and center, driving all of this and being the ones to plan, deliver, find the pathways, isolate all the technology tools. The students themselves are actually drivers here. And I'm happy to send this image along for those who want to take a deeper dive and look at it. So we'll jump forward to also kind of what we know about the class of 2030. So we know that the future of learning, and really we're in it now, right? We've had a catalyst that's accelerated our progress around this notion for the last 22-ish months or so, 20 months. And that is that we're moving towards this student-centric, social, and personalized experience for our learners. We know that students are going to have a work future and a life future that revolve around these skills for the workforce that really are technocentric, but also hyper personalized and hyper sort of customizable with flexibility. We know, all of us as teachers know, that we've got a soft skills gap that's coming into focus. We really need students to be able to collaborate effectively, and that looks differently than just assigning group projects. So how are they collaborating and communicating not only with their peers, but with their teachers, with other stakeholders in their education environment? We also know that personalized learning is in high demand. Students want this for themselves. And actually, we've got a lot of good research that says personalized learning can help 70% of students achieve more. Essentially saying that the current pace and path that students experience, that same way, same day teaching and learning, isn't effective for 70% of our students. So on our best days, with our best efforts, without personalized learning, we're really touching about 30% of our population. The role of the teacher in personalized learning, despite what some may think at first, is actually amplified, but it's not amplified from a position of delivering information. It's actually amplified for relationships and rapport. It's asking us to co-plan with our students. It's asking us to get to know them. It's asking us to get to know, with data, where they are and how we can help them move forward. And that's a time-sensitive endeavor. And so we'll talk a little bit about that coming up next, and how technology actually creates an opportunity for us not to be so burdened by the time constraints that we have. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and jump in. What's our barrier here to personalization? I gave you a couple of hints and giveaways here, so hopefully you'll be able to take it from here. And please feel free in the chat as well. What are some barriers you all see to personalized learning at scale?
Yeah, I'll start here. So I think it's important for us to take a little walk in history. So I know if you hear the term digital divide, I think everybody automatically thinks about the divide with access to technology, right? So years ago, the conversation started around, well, some schools, they have access to technology and some schools, they don't. I think over the last 20 months, most school districts, most classrooms, most schools have done a really good job closing that access gap, because that was kind of a major need, and it still is. And I think about now what's being elevated as this second level digital divide. So if you think about access as the first level, the second level digital divide that's being emphasized right now in research is around pedagogical approaches in the classroom. So your teacher next door might be using technology. All students have technology, but he or she might just be using it for drill and practice. And going on this website, just practice these few problems and you quote unquote use technology. Meanwhile, while teacher B on the opposite side of the hall is using technology to innovate, to have students collaborate, to create digital products for students to work asynchronously and synchronously, and to frame out projects and work that way. So I think that is one of the barriers that we have to address, and emphasizing and drilling down on this second level digital divide, because ultimately we don't want to be in a situation when we're playing teacher lottery, where we just hope my child, my student gets that teacher that's innovative. How do we now bring this approach, this mindset at scale, with those factors of training, time, and consistency all being a part of that conversation? So I think that inevitably has to be a part of that conversation to remove those barriers.
Yeah, love that. Carlos, what about you?
I mean, if I was to talk about barriers, I mean, that what kind of stands out in my brain here is barriers that we accidentally put up. School districts, major leaders accidentally put up without even thinking about it, or without even thinking that they're putting up. They're kind of hindering themselves. They're really shooting themselves in the foot here. My brain goes straight to data, right? What are you doing with data? A lot of times there's a lack of data from a school district perspective, or even worse, making decisions on what I call the wrong data, looking at things with the wrong lens, and it's moving the masses, it's moving the herd along, and that's not personalization. And by having that mindset, or not looking at the right data, or not trying to pinpoint where do we have the greatest possibility of growth, these are the types of things that really can kind of go and make a massive difference in there. And there's some things that you mentioned earlier that I just wanted to just harp on a little bit here, Steph, which was you mentioned that one of the greatest impacts is the teacher relationships and the rapport that they have with the students, right? That is so impactful. And when you look at teachers, I'm speaking here for by myself, being a former teacher. I mean, that was my strength, the relationships that I built with the students, and also I was a content expert, in my field and what it was that I taught. There was no question. So I wanted to kind of focus in on that. And if I focus in on that, so I'm trying to think of, like, because of time constraints, because of everything I was given, how do we go and how do we focus in on getting teachers and leaders the right data for them to see, so that it can be actionable, so they can continue to focus on their strength. The leaders to lead. They were put into that position to lead and help and guide, right? And the teachers to do what they do best: nurture children, teach children, build dreams and goals. And these are the types of things that can all be done if we use the right tools, and if we don't accidentally shoot ourselves by not using data properly, or not knowing how to use data, or the wrong data.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, the best laid tools in hands that aren't equipped are just tools that go unused, right? We get really expensive technology bookends and paperweights on our desk. So tying both of your comments together, it's not just about having the things, it's also about knowing how to leverage them really effectively and streamline your processes as an educator. So something that we know is that those solutions and strategies for how we best take what we have access to and leverage it for personalized learning don't come from somebody top down telling you what to do. They're actually super localized and personalized, go figure, solutions based on the school site, the administrative team, the educators that are there. And so, again, this is a complex problem, not a complicated one. Complicated problems have really specific steps we can follow to achieve it. complex problems are things that don't have a specific path to follow, that are a little bit amorphous, and they're sometimes more difficult to solve just because there's so many options and opportunities. And I love some of the comments that I'm seeing around equity as well. A solution made by a district office or, a superintendent or a state DOE sometimes is so far separated from the localized student population and community that it serves that it doesn't really address the equity issues. And not because they're not trying to, but because the local community at the school needs to be in charge of that. So we have some barriers for sure, but we also have some trends and technologies on the horizon that we see as really supportive of personalized learning at scale. So Darren, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so as I think about trends and piggybacking on your comments and Carlos's recent comments, this idea of data really starts to resonate. And as I process that, one of the things that comes to mind is data is the new oil, right? Data is this resource that everybody needs and needs to find a way to use it to make us go further. With that being said, I think as we think about leading indicators and what are our data points, how do we leverage data in the classroom to provide just-in-time direct instruction, to co-plan learning with our students, to give flexible pacing as an option. I think all of those conversations kind of see where we're going and what this horizon looks like. And one of the things that really, as I reflect on my role as a principal previously, this time last year, we were running around trying to complete fluency assessments, right? I was an elementary principal. So as you know, there are certain times of the year where you have these real formal one-on-one fluency assessments. And it took a all hands on deck approach. But it took a long time. And I don't quite know if that was the most efficient way. And dare I say, new teachers in the mix may not fully comprehend or know the right way to track data and how accurate the data was. We still don't know. So that kind of resonates with me. Like, how do we move from that to using these leading indicators to be more proactive, to be more efficient, and respond to students, those needs, skills, and interests more appropriately.
Yeah, love it. And I think Carlos, you probably got some ideas popping up based on what Darren's saying of some of the advancements that you've seen.
Yeah, so from an advancement perspective, it's all about efficiency. One of the questions I get asked the most is like, what is it that you love about your job, right? When we work in the modern workplace team, and what I love about it? I love the fact that we find new ways to be quicker and more efficient, to get things done, to get to your goals and so on. And the way that we do that is through the amazing tools that we have, through things like data insights, and things like AI. What we're doing with artificial intelligence is absolutely incredible. The idea to look at predictability, to help students. Darren, what you were talking about with fluency assessments is that hit home really, really hard. One of the things that we've been working on with Microsoft is on this kind of new project that's called Reading Progress, and this is something that's absolutely free. We've given this out as a part of Teams, and we're working with a bunch of different partners to put this into their LMSs as well. And what we're doing with Reading Progress is we've basically found a way to do a anytime, anywhere fluency test, fluency assessment. So this is one of those things where you can kind of go, and all of a sudden a student can easily go using their computer, using their phone, whatever it might be, and take a fluency test where they're recording themselves. And they're thinking about what it is that they're doing, they're reading, they're recording themselves. And after everything's kind of said and done, right, they can go and if the teacher allows it, they can go and they can listen to themselves. But there's an incredible amount of AI and data behind the scenes. And what we're doing is, as you see in this picture over here, you have that student kind of going and recording themselves. Once they hit "I'm finished," then all this data goes right back to the teacher, and it talks about the mispronunciations. Hey, what is the accuracy rate that student had? This is AI. This is technology, artificial intelligence built into a product. However, the best teacher is an actual human being teacher, right? So you have a ton of flexibility in there to go and change the sensitivity. So if you felt like the sensitivity wasn't right, you can actually go in there and adjust it so you can ultimately give the best interpretation of that grade that you see. So the data that you're looking at over here is looking at the averages of words per minute, what it is that not just that individual student is doing, but you can also see this from a class perspective. And then at the end, you're also getting this incredible mind map of words that student is struggling with. This is what we call reading progress. We're not done. You can imagine with what we're doing here, anytime, any learning, multiple times, getting that student to be able to, whether it's at home, whether it's at school, empowering the teacher to have so much more flexibility if there's devices in the classroom, if they are one-to-one, whatever situation it might be, to kind of go and leverage that to that next scale. It's absolutely brilliant. We are very, very excited about that, and there's so much more coming. And the other thing, the last thing I'll mention about reading fluency and what we're doing with reading progress is that this was created not by Microsoft, but by teachers. We spend a lot of time working with teachers from all over the country, all over the world, sharing, hey, what's best practice? Talk to us. Tell us exactly. I mean, as you can see, we also hire former teachers and former administrators as well inside of Microsoft, but learning and finding out what's best practice, where are you struggling with, and watching different students and watching, what can we do to help them hit that goal that they're trying to hit. So this is where all of this is driving from.
Yeah, awesome. And I think with a tool like Reading Progress, it's really clear that when we have information, it's easier to act, and actually we can't help but act. Data's been a 4-letter word, and not just, yes, I know it has 4 letters, but like the kind with asterisks and like exclamation points in it in education, because very few educators have gone to school to be data scientists or to really manipulate data and then use predictive analytics and prescriptive analytics. So the AI and the tools can help us do that and really break down one of those barriers so that we are proactive, that we're thinking holistically, and that we can empower ourselves as educators, but also our students. And just as an example, these questions that we've listed over here are questions that are available today inside of Education Insights with Microsoft Teams that are really hard without the tools and without the analytics and AI to answer. Things like, are the activities and strategies supporting academic success? That's $1 million question in education. Are the things that I'm planning and doing with my students actually meaningful and helping them be successful? Do any students have additional staging or staggering or segmentation of assignments to effectively manage their time? Well, sure, probably, but do I know specifically who needs that? And can I take action on it? Are students equitably engaged? With the insights that we have inside of Teams, we actually know, are you engaging all students actively? Are some students not engaged? Do you need to ask more questions through, a different, modality to really engage folks differently? So amazing information and data and insights. And so we've gotten to the point where we were just about at the 5-minute mark before we have to close. And I would love just some final thoughts from you all around, if you could wave a magic wand, right? And maybe you had your own classroom back again. With students coming every day, whether they're virtual some days or face-to-face some days, or either or all the time, what's something that you might do and take back with you to a classroom? What's something that would really change your practice and make it more personalized?
Oh, this is a great question. As I think about what I would do, actually, I would be way better than I was now knowing what I do know. But I would think about creating more immersive experiences. Just thinking about the tools that we have out there, this idea of immersive reader, being able to really complement and accommodate student learning needs. I would also leverage, and I might be getting a little technical here, but I'm sure all the teachers can appreciate, as I think about my instructional framework, after that mini lesson, there's no more, whole group direct instruction. There's so many different avenues I can take with my small groups. I can have a center dedicated to reading progress. I can have a center for a teacher-led station. I can have my third center for collaboration. So there's so many approaches that can be taken, but I think ultimately, as I think about what would be my sweet spot, this idea of varied strategies, having different strategies readily available, flexible pacing, data-driven instruction, and with some choice and voice, right? Where based off my data as a student, I have these set amount of choices that I can use to engage in learning. I would also think about co-planning. So how do I now transform my one-on-one student conferences using those leading indicators, using leading data instead of waiting to this one unit assessment or this one, midterm, or even, dare I say, the end of the year state assessment. There's so many data points that can be leveraged. It's just a matter of capturing them and actualizing their value. I think that would be kind of my landing spot if I were back in the classroom.
Yeah, love it. Love it. All right, Carlos, what about you?
Just real quick, mine would be just learn and reflect, right? So as a former teacher, I think we're so focused on teaching that sometimes we don't take time for ourselves to continue to learn, right? There's so much out there. There's, that I always think about, like that 1%. Can you make yourself 1% better, right? Each and every day. And there's so many things that we can learn, not just from our students, but also from our faculty and our staff and the person next to you and others, and be able to reflect on your own practices. This is part of that learning process, right? And how could I do this better? How could I have done this better? What can I adjust? And we constantly ask this. We talk about personalization. We talk about how do we personalize something for the student, but personalize stuff for yourself as well, right? Take some time to think about it. Leverage the tools, whatever tools you have access to. Everybody has access to different tools, right? Leverage, whether it's artificial intelligence, leverage insights, and leverage data, leverage whatever it is that you have. And even if you don't have access to that, continue to learn, right? And find a way, because that's what we do every single day as educators. We find a way to empower students and help them get to where we need them to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I would go back and expect for myself what I wanted to push forward for my students. It can be really easy as a teacher to get into a deficit mindset of, I do the same thing when I'm told by administrators, or I don't step out of the box unless I'm asked to do so. And I think expecting and seeking that empowered, personalized path for myself as an educator, sign up for the pilots, sign up for the things that are on the fringe, do different things to keep yourself excited and engaged. And, pandemic notwithstanding, teaching is always hard. There's always something that makes it more difficult than it should be, but we're also the most resilient people that I know. So expecting that of myself and then supporting my students in the same way to be resilient and empowered and personalized in their approach. So really excited to have spent some time with you all. Thank you again. I am the person to support Palm Beach from the Microsoft team. So I'm just going to kind of end with the offer that if you want to learn more, reach out to your district staff. They can get in touch with me and we'll take a deep dive. It sounds like reading progress might be something you all are interested in. So happy to share that. Oh, Melissa, I think you're still muted.
Yep.
I am. I'm sorry. Thank you
fine.
so much. This was an amazing, very interesting, very engaging presentation. I know that we had a lot of comments in the chat. Unfortunately, we had a spammer towards the end. I'm not sure if any of you saw that, but we had to disable the chat feature. So if you all can go all the way on the right side of your screen at the top, there's something that says comment. Oh, we can't do that. I was going to say, if you could put your emails, that would be helpful. But if anybody would like any information regarding any of this, please feel free to email me, melissa.matthews@palmbeachschools.org, or john.shoemaker@palmbeachschools.org. And one of us can direct your questions to Carlos, Darren, or Stephanee. If you guys want to verbally say your emails, that way they have those as well.
Yeah, so mine's just sstevens with a PH at Microsoft.com. So SSTEPHENS at Microsoft.com. I'll fall on the sword for everybody since you guys are under my wing, and I'll reach out to Darren and Carlos should they need to get engaged to help us out as well.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Melissa.
Thank you all for your time. You've been amazing presenters. We greatly appreciate you. And thank you all for watching at wherever you are, home, school, wherever. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you in session C. Have a great
Awesome.
day.
Bye, all.
Thank you.